allowing our platform to be 13 and nobody below, but then allow 10-year-olds on and actively promote it to 10-year-olds. So we're going to cut down on that. We're going to get the Children's Commissioner voice in there. We're going to make it much more transparent so parents know exactly what they're doing. And then in relation to adults, we are introducing what we're calling a triple shield of defence. First is, if it's illegal, it has to go. Second is, if it's a breach of their terms and conditions, which we know the vast majority of the harms that people identify are associated with them, it has to go. And thirdly, they have to provide their users with more control over their content. So that's the triple shield. We are removing the legal but harmful, which would have led to unintended consequences and have an erosion of free speech, whereas we're rebalancing this with some common sense approaches.
When will this all be in place, do you imagine, Secretary of State?
So we'll bring the bill back to the House of Commons next Monday, and it will become a law during this parliamentary session. So it will complete all stages this parliamentary session.
But
so I can assure you of that.
OK, I hear you, Secretary, but that could be 2 years.
Well, not 2 years for it to complete and become an act. Obviously, there is an implementation period because Ofcom have to then, who will be the regulator, work with all the support groups and stakeholders to produce comprehensive guidance and codes of practice so that the bill is actually workable in the real world. We want to get this right, don't we?
Yes,
we don't
indeed.
want this to end up being a bill that is implemented incorrectly. But I agree with you. We've got to work at maximum speed. I've been Secretary of State for a couple of months now. I've managed to get this bill back to Parliament. I've managed to get this bill back in a stronger fashion, in a better fashion, and something that will fundamentally and crucially protect children.
You say if the companies don't do this, they're going to face very serious ramifications, including fines of up to 10%. Well, if you look at the sort of money that Meta makes, that's tens of millions of pounds. How many?
Billions.
Tens of billions, I said, tens of billions of pounds. What level of crime would they have to commit to get that kind of fine? How many times would they have to transgress the code?
Well, this would obviously be done on a case-by-case basis by the regulator, but it would depend on what they've done. You know, the punishment has to fit the crime. You know, if they grossly try to avoid the legislation, if they don't implement these changes, if they weren't protecting children, if they're allowing children to see illegal content, if they're allowing children to see harmful content, then I would fully anticipate that they would be expecting to see the maximum of these fines. And they know too well that is what is coming downstream, and they have equally been preparing for this as well.
So just one offence would be enough?
It would depend on the magnitude of the offence. If they had not put in place any systems or processes to protect children, or they hadn't adhered to the triple shield, then yes. If it is the case that they had put in the processes and something slipped through, then I'm sure there would be work to be done with the regulator, and they would make a bespoke decision. So I can't comment on individual rulings that are hypothetical and haven't happened, but you can see that this is going to really have teeth. This is not the case that they'll just slap these social media companies on the wrist. For too long, they've been prioritising profits over people, and they've been ignoring the fundamental risk to children.
And just lastly on this, have you spoken with Sir Nick Clegg? I remind my listeners, of course, he's President of Global Affairs for Meta.
He is indeed. I haven't spoken to him about the most recent changes to the bill. I have spoke to him a couple of months ago, but I've spoke to other members of the team at Meta and all social media platforms, as has the other ministers in my department.
All right. While I have the benefit on the line, can we look at some other matters that are on your brief? And to China, who are now claiming the BBC is, and I use their words, playing the victim after one of its journalists was detained and allegedly beaten in the Shanghai protest. Do you agree with that? What would your comments be on that, Secretary of State?
Well, I've seen the footage and it's absolutely shocking. We believe, and I'm sure you believe, in press freedom and the ability for the media to be able to report all over the globe and communicate what is actually happening on the ground. And that, I believe, is what this individual was trying to do. They were just trying to do their job. And it's quite shocking that they were treated in such an appalling fashion. I wait the full details of that from the Chinese government. I know that they've given a version of the truth, which I'm sure we would all agree is very highly sceptical. But the Foreign Office are dealing with this, and they're in close contact with the journalist in question.
Should we see China as friend or foe?
Well, the Prime Minister did a detailed speech about this last night where he pointed out the fact that we can't ignore the fact or bury our heads in the sand that China is a massive global player. It is very important on the world stage and we need to work with it and with the key players in that country. But at the same time, yes, it produces strategic challenges, very worrying and concerning ones, and we can't shy away from that. And that's why we'll be updating the integrated review in the spring.
One of your close colleagues, Stuart Andrew, was attending the England v Wales game later. He's wearing a One Love armband. Do you support him in that?
I do. He's a minister within my department. He has my full support to do that. I believe that we should be standing up for our values, not just when we're in the UK, but also when we're around the globe. And I share the sentiments and the message around that One Love armband. I also backed our England team and our Welsh team to wear the armband as well, but understand they couldn't because of the strong sanctions that would have been in place. So, yeah, he has my full support.
And do you support the fact they didn't go ahead and wear them during the games?
I think that was a really difficult decision, and I know it was one that was led by the FA. I think they were put in an impossible decision there because they didn't want to face those sanctions. They're there wanting to compete, wanting to win. We all want them to win. And it was really unfortunate that they were put in that position. They
can't both win, of course. That's the one problem. One of the home nations has to go forward.
That is the problem, isn't it?
It is a problem. Former Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair said the governments couldn't go over the top in criticising Qatar. Would you concur with him?
I don't think we have been going over the top at all, but I think it's right that we stand up for our values and that we don't deny who we are as a country and try and influence others to spread the word of our democracy and our modern way of life, and that we call out abuse where we see it all over the world. And it's no secret that Qatar does have a very bleak record on human rights. It does have a shocking record when it comes to their approach to equality. So it's right that we call that out, that we talk to them about that, which is certainly what Stuart Andrew is doing, and I know that the Foreign Secretary did when he was out there as well.
Last couple of points. Ahead of tonight's game, there is a warning. Fans' banter must not stray beyond a joke in the workplace. While it's fun to have a laugh at each other, we have to be careful we don't break laws. That's a bit po-faced and nanny-ish, isn't it, do you think?
I think we should always try to ensure that we don't break laws, eh?
But a little joke about the Welsh or a little joke about the English or whatever it might be, that's surely okay in the workplace, isn't it?
I think it depends what the nature of the joke, doesn't it, and how far it goes. But a joke here and there is certainly fine, I guess. But definitely don't break any laws.
But you'll allow banter in the DCMS today between your Welsh and English colleagues, won't you?
Of course, there's nothing wrong with banter and jovial conversation. In fact, it lifts up moods. But today is going to be an interesting one this evening, and we'll see who comes out victorious.
Okay. Just finally, coming back to our social media conversation, do you have a TikTok account?
I do, yes. Yeah, I haven't used it for a little bit, but I do.
Are they not a security risk if we track back the ownership to China?
So I think that they're not a security risk. I prefer to use Facebook because I can communicate much more with my constituents on that. And I use Twitter as well. They're the major platforms that I use.
All right, but you have got one, a TikTok.
I have got a TikTok, yeah, and I'm sure I'll use it again soon. It's just something that I don't get round to very often, if I'm honest, Nick.
All right, grateful for your time today. Thank you. Digital, Culture, Media and Sports Secretary. Appearing here, Michelle Donelan, appearing here on LBC, where at 1 minute after 8, news headlines are next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, analysis by LBC has revealed the Metropolitan Police has spent 12,000 full shifts dealing with Just Stop Oil protests. The environmental group has begun another wave of action on London's streets in the lead up to Christmas. The Met's Assistant Commissioner, Matt Twist, says a huge amount of police time has been dedicated to clearing roads and patrolling motorways during the disruption this year.
Every one of those shifts is a shift that could have been better spent dealing with crime in local communities and supporting local communities, investigating crime or responding to incidents. The problem is that we have to have a well-resourced plan because the public rightly expect us to deal with things quickly, and also we can't allow criminal offences to be committed, either public nuisance or highway obstruction, which is causing serious disruption and misery.
Separately, the Met has become the first force in the UK to open an anonymous hotline to report corrupt or abusive officers. The force has been heavily criticised over its disciplinary procedures, which have led to hundreds of corrupt officers still serving. The hotline will be run by Crime Stoppers. Rishi Sunak has promised what he calls an evolutionary leap in foreign policy, including a change in approach to China. In a speech at London's Guildhall last night, the Prime Minister said the golden era of UK-Chinese relations is over. He accused the country of becoming increasingly authoritarian in its dealing with anti-lockdown protesters. A man has died after he was stabbed close to Regent's Park in London. Another man is in hospital after the attack on a nearby street yesterday afternoon. No arrests have been made. Plans to force social media sites to take down material deemed legal but harmful have been dropped. The government announced another amendment to its online safety bill, as ministers fear the original plan would have impacted on free speech too much. Culture Secretary Michelle Donelan has told Nick other changes will improve online safety for children.
One of the ways is making sure that they stick to their age restrictions. So they can't say we're allowing our platform to be 13 and nobody below, but then allow 10-year-olds on and actively promote it to 10-year-olds. So we're going to cut down on that. We're going to get the Children's Commissioner voice in there. We're going to make it much more transparent so parents know exactly what they're doing.
England and Wales face each other at a World Cup for the first time this evening. It's a crucial game, with England needing just a point to guarantee their progress to the knockout stages. Wales must win to keep their hopes alive. In the City, the FTSE 100 is reopening at 74.74 after closing down 12 points. Yesterday, the pound buys $1.20 and €1.16. LBC weather, a few sunny spells, but many areas staying cloudy with some fog. The best of the sunshine expected across the far north and the southwest, and a high of 12 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.